All right, guys, this just showed up in the Lock Lab not too long ago, and I think it's a result of a New York Times Sunday. They have a special. They recommend all kinds of different equipment for different things, barbecuing, clothing, summer. Anyway, one of the things they talked about was bike gear, and they talked about everything from panniers to locks to helmets to lights, and if you lose everything, you can always go back and get a new bike. It's published by Wirecutter, which is a New York Times company. Anyway, this is from Mike. He wanted to know if I thought the lock was a good lock. We do have a key. It's mummied in this anti-X-ray wrap. Hope we don't need it. But anyway, let's talk about these. A lot of these locks look very, very similar. The only thing that really changed are the accessories. Some of them come with a cable, and some of them come with this. This is what they call the messenger collection. And I think this hoop, again, for messengers, you jump off your bike, you pull that hoop off and you put it around like a signpost, and then you run your lock through that and through your bike. So it's pretty convenient. Yeah, outer, they all look almost identical. Same dimensions, same everything. It's got a little weather cover here. They're all, I think, disc detainers now. There have been some internal changes on these guys, though, and let's talk about that. When this pick, and here is a stock one, when these first came out, they worked on these with no problem. And then Kryptonite said, all right, we're going to fix that. Then they started tensioning from random discs on the inside of the disc pack. And we found a workaround for that as well. And I'll demonstrate that, hopefully, on this lock. And then what we found out is that they started putting a really thick spinner disc. So you'll notice we can only reach inside of there that far, up to that shoulder. So when I take this guy and I slide him in there, it doesn't go far enough in the lock so that that little prong grabs a hold of the first disc so that we can tension the disc pack. So we got another workaround. And that workaround would be, this is my working pick, and I think right away you can see I took a file to it. Let me grab this probe. And so what we did is, all I did is I took that shoulder and I just backed it up to there with a file all the way back. And now we have very, very long prongs that allow me to get in. So a counter to the counter picking from Kryptonite. Who knows what they're going to come up with next? All right, so let's try it. First thing we're going to do is, let me forget this flat thing here. I am going to rotate all the discs. Get in there. Clockwise. I just want to look and make sure I caught them all, and I think I did. They're all rotated completely clockwise. I hope I don't need him. I'm not going to need him. I am going to use this guy. So let me line up my tip. Now, the only bad thing about filing a longer set of shoulders, you got to be very careful about how far you shove that in there. Let me rotate that. I'll just hold it like that, I guess. So what I like to do, line up the hole, turn the weather cover just right, is I slide it in, and as soon as I grab a disc, I feel it tensioning now. I'm going to back it out until it starts spinning, and then I'm just going to shove it forward a little bit just to make sure I'm only grabbing one disc. You know, the hard part now is going to be keeping the lock centered. So do your best to keep the axis directly down the center of that lock. I'm going to move that tip all the way forward. Make sure I got that disc just right. All right, so now we're in the very back. What I could do is loosen up these screws and then slide that all the way down so I'm at the zero. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just back up until I find the first disc. Should be right somewhere in here. Here we go, right? I feel them. I keep falling off. They're very thin. So I'm on the first disc, and all I'm going to do is count these. So I'm going to count that as 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, on the 7th position, we're actually on the first disc of this lock. So what I'm going to do is go counterclockwise to try to pick it, and you'll feel it clunk, hopefully, into a gate. So very heavy tension, at least for this first one. You want to force those discs to bind against the sidebar. And when it falls in, you probably saw that. Now when you rotate it back and forth, you can feel it inside of a gate, and you probably notice when it clunked, it turned a little bit. So that first one is now, I'm 100% sure it's in its place. So let's go to the next one. It should be right in here. These, by the way, the marks are just about right for these type of locks in terms of spacing. So every mark should be very close to a disc. So let's try this guy. Okay, I got nothing. So here's the trick. This is probably a tensioning disc. Let me slide him all the way back to where he started from and try it here. And actually that feels like a gate. It's nice and wide. So that may not be the tensioner. That may be in the gate. But let's keep him in mind. So that'd be disc 8, maybe our tensioner. Just keep that in mind. Let's move to the next one. Get lined up right about there. And let's see what he does. Again, no clunk. Dang it. All right, let's put him back where he belongs. That may also be a tensioner. So we have 2 options here. Let's just check him. I got to tell you, that also feels like a gate, just like that one. So I may be wrong. One of these may be the tensioner. So let's keep that in mind, 7 and 8. Let's go to this guy. And that definitely clunked, and you saw a little bit of turn. In fact, I almost dropped it. It was so violent. And let's keep moving. Come on. Here we go. Come on. If you find yourself having trouble getting through there, it's because the openings on these discs are pretty small. And sometimes you have trouble fitting that tip through there. But I got it, I think. Let's try this guy. Oops. That also got no clunk. So let's push him all the way back where he came from. Get lined up. Get on there. Come on. Okay, that does not feel like a gate. There's no play in that one. So I would be willing, I'm gambling here, because I'm at the back of the lock. The only disc that is not picked is the one that I'm tensioning off of. So I believe 7 and 8, I believe those are in gates. And I believe this one is our tensioner because he doesn't feel like he's in a gate. So what I'm going to do is apply tension with the pick. So I'm going to apply it like that. I'm going to try to keep it centered. I'm going to release that. And now I'm just going to back it up to move that first disc. And hopefully, I felt it turn. There we go. That's how it works. All right, so that was a little tricky, a little trickier than usual, I've got to say. Let's take a look at these keys, and hopefully nothing embarrasses me so I can use this video. But I'm pretty sure that 7 and 8 are going to be all the way forward, which is a little deceiving. It might be another attempt from Kryptonite to fool us. Yeah, check that out. All right, so we had a very deep one on the first, and then those 2 guys were the ones that I had completely went counterclockwise, found nothing, and I shoved them back. And those 2, there's actually 2 gates there. They're both of them forward most. And so our tensioner was right there. So yeah, that's what we're playing with. This first cut, this guy is actually the one that I had to back up with the handle while I held tension on this forward most one with our pick tip. So, you know, they come up with all these ways. Who knows what they're going to come up with next? And maybe something that's powered by, you know, a lithium battery, for goodness sakes. Anyway, Mike, to answer your question, is this a good lock? Yeah. For casual security, it's probably a good lock. But I've got to tell you, the advertising said this is going to protect you against bolt cutters. But unfortunately, you know, 20 years ago, bolt cutters were what criminals used, and this would probably have worked pretty good. They don't use bolt cutters anymore. They use these guys, die grinders. And with a die grinder, you could probably cut through this less than a minute, probably. Now, the way that they've designed these is if you cut through one side, you can't remove the shackle, you can't turn it. That's the way they're designed. So you actually have to cut it twice. So at best, you might get 2 minutes of resistance before a die grinder manages to cut one here, cut one there, and then they can pull it away from your bike and drive away. So the answer is no. For temporary security, yeah, you're getting a coffee, you got your bike in sight. Yeah, works perfectly fine. The casual thief is not going to, he's going to see it, he's going to want it, but he's going to say, I can't get it. But you can't leave it out overnight. The only sure security is to remove the temptation, take your bike, lock it in your basement, lock it in a storage area, take it up into your apartment, into your house, store it in your garage with your garage door down, then put the lock on. Then you got a pretty good chance of keeping your bike. Anyway, guys, appreciate your time. Stay safe. Stay legal.